Okay, let's picture this. A future, maybe not that far away, we're moving anything physical, like, say, medicine you really need, or a specific machine part, even just papers. It's all controlled by huge digital companies. Every single drone flight, logged, tracked, probably monetized, every package scanned. The whole delivery system becomes, well, a giant surveillance network. It sounds pretty dystopian, and that's exactly what the people behind Trusted Hands wanted to head off. They had this one chilling line: there will come a day when the sky is no longer free.
Yeah. And what we're digging into today, it's really bigger than just, package delivery. It's about who controls fundamental infrastructure. When everything is centralized for convenience, that ability to move physical stuff, that becomes a massive control point. So Trusted Hands, it's conceived as this deep, resilient backup plan, a plan B, if you will. It's a framework for community-run protocols to keep physical movement decentralized, trustless, and permissionless. It's pushing back against that centralizing trend.
Right. So let's unpack this blueprint. For this deep dive, we want to look at the sources and really get three things clear. First, what's the core philosophy here? Second, how on earth do you build trust between anonymous people without a company in charge? And third, why should you, listening right now, care about this idea of logistics as liberation when, let's face it, the current delivery systems seem pretty darn efficient? That phrase itself, logistics as liberation, it feels loaded. It suggests moving stuff is, I don't know, inherently political. What's the Trusted Hands take on that?
It completely reframes delivery, yeah.
Yeah.
It argues that moving physical things, especially essentials, food, medicine, tools, isn't just a service you pay for. It should be treated like a basic human right, like free speech, but for movement. The whole aim is to build what they call a delivery commons, an infrastructure that, by its very design, can't be easily captured by corporations or governments or censored. Because if your ability to move things is constantly watched and potentially restricted, how autonomous are you, really?
And it sounds like they looked at existing decentralized systems for, well, inspiration on how to build that resilience.
Oh, absolutely. The core inspiration, especially for the resilience part, comes straight from Bitcoin. Trusted Hands is sort of envisioned as its physical world counterpart. It's designed to resist the same kinds of pressures, the same censorship attempts. They actually call it an encrypted underground railroad of physical payloads. The idea is, just like Bitcoin transactions flow across borders, a package should be able to move just as freely, regardless of who might want to stop it.
And it's a direct response to that creeping assumption you mentioned that sending a package just isn't a private thing anymore. If convenience requires surveillance, you need a whole new architecture for privacy.
Precisely. And that means you have to solve the physical world problems too, not just the digital ones.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics then. How does this big idea actually work on the ground? Because for a system like this to be resilient, especially under pressure, it needs to be simple, redundant.
Well, the operational flow is actually pretty elegant in its simplicity. It relies on three core roles, all pseudonymous: senders, carriers, and these crucial human operators they call hands.
Oh.
So a sender basically broadcasts a request, what needs moving encrypted, obviously where it needs to go, and the time frame. A carrier, which could be an automated drone or maybe a trusted human courier, picks up the job and starts moving the item. But the key is the journey is broken down into small, manageable legs. That helps with anonymity and redundancy.
Okay, but if the carriers are drones, why bring humans back into it with these hands? Doesn't that introduce a weak link in a decentralized setup?
But the hands are the critical connective tissue. Automated systems, they're great until they hit friction. Think regulations, weird terrain, sudden storms, or just running out of battery halfway there. The hands are these compensated human operators who step in to do the essential physical tasks that pure automation just can't handle reliably. That's actually where a lot of the real resilience comes from.
Okay, like what? Give us some solid examples of what these hands actually do.
Yeah, the sources lay out a few key things. First, just extending range. Drones run out of juice. A hand acts like an anonymous pit stop. They retrieve the drone, swap the battery, maybe check it over, and relaunch it on its way. Second, they manage relays. Imagine a package needs to cross a dense city center where drones might be restricted. The drone delivers it to a hand on the edge, and maybe that hand then passes it to, say, a bike courier for the next leg.
So they bridge the gaps, overcome physical limits. What about security or getting through tricky areas?
That's the third and fourth big task. Hands are vital for getting around obstacles. They might physically carry a package across a no-fly zone, or maybe across a border where a drone would be immediately flagged. Places where automation is impossible or just too visible. And they handle the physical security piece too. like ensuring the payload is properly secured in a special tamper-proof container, often sealed with a QR code that ties the physical package to its encrypted digital journey.
Okay, but relying on all these anonymous or pseudonymous people, senders, carriers, hands, that brings up the big question, trust. How do you make sure people do what they're supposed to, that packages arrive, without a central company managing everything, tracking everyone, and punishing mistakes?
Right, and this is where the engineer gets really clever, borrowing directly from crypto principles for the physical world. Think about Bitcoin again. Its security comes from having thousands of nodes all validating the ledger, right? Decentralization plus redundancy. Trusted Hands tries to mimic that physically. Instead of thousands of digital nodes, you have this dispersed network of human hands. If one hand isn't available or drops offline, the protocol just finds the next closest hand to handle the relay. No single point of physical failure.
So the network itself provides the physical backup. But what about verifying the service digitally, making sure the handoff happened?
That's where the carriers play a role, acting a bit like Bitcoin miners. As carriers move the payloads, they constantly validate their route, providing cryptographic proof of their location and updating the package's journey hash. It's this distributed validation that makes it censorship-resistant. No outside authority can just reroute a package because the proof the package is physically moving along its path is being confirmed by the carrier itself in near real time.
Okay, now let's dive into the specific tech that makes this secure enough for people needing real privacy. First one seems straightforward. End-to-end encryption. How's that applied here?
So all the sensitive digital info, final destination, package content, sender ID is completely scrambled, unreadable to anyone except the original sender and the final recipient. But the critical part for keeping everyone safe is that carriers and hands only know the immediate next step, the very next hop in the journey. That minimizes risk dramatically. If one participant is somehow compromised, they can't trace the whole path back to the start or forward to the end.
That definitely limits exposure. But how do you actually prove a specific task, like that battery swap or the package handoff was done correctly, without revealing who the hand was or what was in the package?
That's where something called zero-knowledge attestations, or ZKAs, come in. This is pretty cutting-edge stuff. Think of a ZKA as like a digital receipt, but a very special kind.
Yeah.
It lets someone prove they did a specific thing, swapped a battery, handed off a package without revealing any other information about themselves, the package, or how exactly they did it.
Can you give a simple analogy for how that might work physically?
Sure. Imagine you need to prove you went through a specific toll booth at a certain time, but you don't want to show your license plate or credit card. A ZKA could generate a unique one-time digital token that cryptographically proves a vehicle passed through that booth at that time, maybe paid the toll, but reveals absolutely nothing identifiable about the car or driver. Applied here, the hand generates a ZKA proving cryptographically that the battery was swapped and the package was secured and sent on its way, but it reveals zero details about the hand's anonymous ID or the package's ultimate destination. It proves the work got done without exposing the worker.
Okay, that protects the hand's privacy. But the system still needs some way to know if a hand is generally reliable, right? Otherwise, someone could just pretend to do the work or mess things up. That's where reputation hashes fit in.
It's exactly right. Reputation hashes tackle two problems at once. First, accountability. Every hand builds up a public reliability score. It's represented by a cryptographic hash based on successfully completed tasks verified by these ZKAs, so the network can see who's trustworthy over time. And second, it helps resist attacks. Because this reputation score is tied to an anonymous identifier, not a real name or address, it protects the participants from being easily identified, doxed or targeted.
But what stops someone malicious from just creating, hundreds of fake anonymous IDs, a simple attack to quickly build up fake positive reputations and disrupt the network?
Yeah, that's a classic problem with decentralized systems. The defense here is tied to the ZKAs and the physical reality of the work. That anonymous identifier isn't just a random name. It's linked to a unique cryptographic key pair the user generates. Now, someone could generate tons of keys, sure, but the protocol is designed so that a reputation hash only starts gaining significant weight after multiple successful verified deliveries. Doing actual physical deliveries, getting ZKAs for them that takes real time, effort, and resources, it becomes computationally and logistically expensive to fake a good reputation across hundreds of identities. The cost and effort to mount that kind of Sybil attack hopefully outweigh any potential benefit. It relies on that proof of physical work. Now, if we shift gears a bit and talk about why this is needed, we have to contrast it with the big players today. Your Amazons, UPS, FedEx.
Yeah.
They're fundamentally limited in certain ways. Their entire system relies on pervasive tracking and central control. They're generally not going to handle deliveries for, say, activist groups or easily get supplies into blockaded zones or disaster areas without official permission.
Right. Their infrastructure requires that permission, that oversight. Trusted Hands flips that. Its whole reason for being is basically we move what we want, where we want, when we want. And that's where it could become, well, vital.
Exactly. Think about a major power outage across a region or an area cut off by floods or an earthquake. When the normal logistics grind to a halt, a system like Trusted Hands could be a lifeline, getting essential medicines, food, communication gear in, when going through official channels just isn't possible or fast enough.
And what's really interesting is how flexible the core idea is. The sources mention this conceptual pilot project down in the Yucatan. And get this, it wasn't about delivering packages to people at all. It was about wildlife conservation.
Yeah, that's a fascinating example of adaptability. They apparently repurposed the basic protocol, the trust mechanics, the decentralized coordination to create this sort of civic mesh network. Drones used for monitoring animal movements, deterring poachers. You could use ZKAs to verify a drone successfully scanned a specific area. Reputation hashes for the reliability of automated sensor posts. It shows the real innovation isn't just the drone delivery part. It's the underlying system for trustworthy, decentralized coordination of physical actions. That could be applied to lots of things.
And this coordination system, it's designed to grow, to scale up quite deliberately. The sources outline 4 phases for how it might evolve. Start small, right?
Yeah. Phase 1 is all about microcells, just local, small-scale, highly trusted exchanges. Think neighbors, community groups, very grassroots. Then phase 2 is meshnet bridging. This is where the drones, the carriers become really important. They start linking these separate local microcells together, creating larger regional networks through relays.
And phase 3 sounds like where it gets really ambitious, pushing towards more automation.
That's autonomous swarms. Yeah, this phase envisions integrating robotic hands, machines that could potentially handle battery swaps, package relays, maybe even minor repairs without needing constant human oversight. The documents even mention the wild idea of using autonomous, maybe even underground fabrication labs to produce more drones and parts locally, keeping the network supplied outside of standard channels.
Wow. Okay, taking control of the means of production almost. And then phase 4, that sounds like the ultimate goal.
Phase 4 is full integration. This is where they see Trusted Hands potentially linking up with other established autonomous movements, things like freedom cells or various bioregional groups. The idea is to weave it into a larger, resilient, alternative global network for exchanging goods and information, operating completely outside the control of traditional corporations and states.
So if we zoom out and try to summarize the whole thing, Trusted Hands is really throwing down a gauntlet. It's challenging that core assumption of platform capitalism, the idea that you have to accept surveillance to get convenient service. It wants to replace that surveillance requirement with something else. Verifiable, anonymous reputation built on cryptographic proof. It's a fundamental rethink of logistics.
It is. And it's framed as much more than just a better delivery service. It's positioned as a potential protocol for survival, for maintaining freedom of movement and exchange in environments that are likely to become more monitored, more controlled. It's presented as a resilient, uncensorable alternative, a kind of postal system for the post system, as they put it.
And we'll leave you with this final, pretty powerful thought from the source material, something that really captures the ambition here. It's what happens when the spirit of the blockchain touches ground.